Hey there! I was contacted by right here Shrewsbury, who lent me that beautiful Skribo pen, but John Hall, who owns the store, said, have you ever reviewed a Cleo pen? And I said, actually I have. The Cleo Skribent Mesograph, which is a ballpoint with a built-in pair of calipers. That is a very old review, so if you want a sort of throwback, look that up. But that company, German company, also makes fountain pens, and I had seen a couple in Nuremberg, and I was there for the Insights X stationery expo, and John said, I think it's kind of an undervalued brand, but people don't really know about it, but they do some nice stuff. So he lent me a couple of these pens, and I am definitely excited to share them with you. Now he sent me 3. I'm going to review 2 in this video and 1 in a future video. This is the classic model, which has either a steel nib or a 14K nib, and then there is also the Skribent, which it has an 18K nib, and it's a bit confusing because these pens come in different finishes and with different nib options and in different filling systems. But today we're going to look at the classic Palladium, which is a cartridge-converter filled pen, and then there is the classic gold. This is available as cartridge converter and piston, and then this is a piston filled version. So you actually have a very traditional blind cap and then a piston turning knob that looks like a captive converter, so like there's a converter in here, but in reality I actually believe it is a real actual piston, because I can see the piston seal moving and it doesn't look like a converter in there, which is cool. It means it's an actual converter. They're nice pens, they're pretty light. You can get them, I'm looking at my notes because it's a bit confusing, all the different models. So you can get these in white, black or Bordeaux. They either have a Palladium trim or a gold trim, and I should actually show the trim too, so you have that. Then you have the cartridge converter or the piston filled version, as I said. You have a steel nib or a 14 karat gold nib in fine, medium or broad. I think that's what I had to say. This one, the Palladium trim, is actually metal coated in precious resin, and the classic gold in this case is precious resin, and it does feel a little bit lighter. To be honest, the weight difference I find fairly negligible, but there is a bit of a difference. Final thing I want to say before I actually show off the pens in more detail is the pricing. So this cartridge converter filled Palladium trim equals about $105 US. It's a UK shop, but I'm giving a dollar price because I think everyone kind of relates to US dollars for some reason. So 105, and then this one, which has a 14K nib as opposed to a steel nib, is $215. So they're not very cheap, but I'll come back to that. What I'm going to do first is show you the parts of the pen. I'll do a writing sample, and I'll tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about it. Thanks, John. Okay, let's have a look at these 2 pens. The 2 pens in question were, of course, the Cleo Classic Palladium and gold trims. But before we do that, let's have a quick look at the box. Now, John sent me 3 pens in the same box, so I assume this is the sort of standard all-purpose Cleo box. Cardboard white outer sleeve, my favorite thing in the world. And then you have this box. Quite simple, but does everything it's supposed to do. Simple box, pen goes in here, you have a little pen bed, and below that is Cleo Skribent Manufaktur feiner Schreibgeräte. Yeah? Okay, what do you have in there? You have a picture of I thought there was a bird farting. Anyway, it's a bird, and I think these are supposed to be quills. Interesting. Then there is some information on the background of the brand and all that. There's filling instructions. And just for the record, I'm not making light of this. I think it's great when companies include these types of instructions. There are people who've never used a piston-filled fountain pen in their life, and then it's great that you actually have the company supply you with the information you need to learn how to ink it up. So that's always great. Okay, now we have 2 pens here. In itself the same model, but with 2 different filling systems and in 2 finishes. So let's quickly cover both. I'm going to start with this one. So this is the Palladium Trim. Top, the finial, has that C. It's the Cleo logo C. Palladium Trim everywhere. We have the clip, simple clip. I like the shape of that. It's quite loose, so it's easy to use, which I like. I hate clips that are so tight that you can barely make them move, but it doesn't feel like you easily break this off, although I'm pretty sure that if I give this a big yank, it's going to snap the other way. So we're a little careful with that. Now we have a center band here, which says, I'm trying to make you see this, you know, I changed my video angle, right? So I'm still trying to figure this out as I go, what the best way is to show you this. So if you like it, then please let me know, and I know that you want to see this. Here in the center band it says Cleo, made in Germany. Cleo, made in Germany. You can play that game all day long. Barrel tapers down, and here at the end this is nothing. It looks like a piston turning knob, but it is in fact nothing. On this model it is actually a blind cap, but here it's nothing, because this is the cartridge converter model. The pen unscrews. It has a very satisfying less than one full turn to uncap. I like that. I hate pens where you have to twist the cap 27 times to open up the pen, and here you have it. So we have what looks like a number 5 nib. This happens to be the steel nib, and again I'll try to show you that. It says Cleo Skribent, actually, M for medium. It has that Cleo logo. I think that's rather a nice nib design. And this happens to be the cartridge converter model, so it is supplied with a converter so you can immediately ink it up. Definitely one of the thinner pens on the spectrum. Some people really love that. I personally like a slightly girthier pen, just because of the size of my hands. I find thin pens a little hard to use. But because it is quite long, I do find it relatively comfortable. You can post these pens nicely too, and because this is, they say metal, covered with precious resin, there is a little bit of weight to it, but it really is a fairly light pen, to be honest. But posted, it's a very nice length, and I think it's also very comfortable to use. So that is rather nice. Now I also want to show you that other model, which pretty much has the same features. So it also has the C on the finial. It also has the clip, although this one is actually a little tighter. It has the same Cleo, made in Germany, on the center band. Clearly this is the burgundy model and not the black. But things get a little different under the hood, so to speak. First of all, this is a piston-filled pen, so you have a piston turning knob right there under this cute little blind cap. A nice large ink window, which is very convenient in piston fillers. The section is rather similar. You see, it's actually the same length as on the Palladium Trim model, but this nib is actually not a medium but a broad. Let me see if I can show you that a little more up close. Cleo Skribent 14 karat solid gold broad nib, and of the 3 Cleo nibs that John lent me, I like this one best. So there you have the two. Now one thing I want to show you before we go, there you have the pens right next to a Lamy Safari. So there you have it. I would say it is definitely a bit thinner than the Safari, but it is approximately the same size. Not exactly the same size, but approximately the same size. Okay, now let's see if we can make the babies right. Grabbing a sheet of paper, and we have our pen. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, just for you. Let's start with the steel nib. So here we have the Cleo Skribent with a medium steel nib. This is Waterman, what I call it again, Serenity Blue. Serenity Blue. One of my favorite, very simple, nice, washable blues. Writing with the steel nib is really quite comfortable. It is a nice, actually pretty smooth writing experience. And the ink flow is nice. It's good, not too rich to be a gusher, but just pleasant. Go really fast here. Not legible, but I don't really see any skips. Maybe here, but it was a thin line to begin with. So that's actually quite good. Wetness, as I said, that's a pretty nicely tuned nib. As always with this, very, very careful. It's a pretty stiff nib, so I wouldn't expect too much in ways of line variation, but it's not sold as a flex nib. Reverse writing, it's a little less smooth, but it can be done, and you do go from a medium to, I would say, a good fine or maybe even extra fine nib. Okay, having capped that, let's have a look at the Piston Filled 14K Cleo. So this is a broad 14K. Same ink, right? For a second I didn't know what to write anymore. I've only done it 1250 times. The writing experience with this nib, quite smooth, but a bit more prone to skipping than the steel. Now, of course, nobody writes this quickly, but you do see some skips here. So, especially on this very smooth paper, you do notice it. And this is a nib that I think could do with a bit of a tune-up. Let me do one of my favorite tricks to always test whether a nib is skippy is to do this. Because you keep lifting it off the paper. Eric Orozco was the first one who showed me this. But you see there was a skip there, there's one there, so this could do with a tune-up, right? Having said that, it is very smooth, and that's probably the issue. It's probably a bit over-polished, but very smooth, and it is, when it does write, it is very pleasant. A little bit of yield to that. Again, very careful, guys. Don't overdo it, but you can squeeze out some line variation here. And the final thing is the infamous reverse writing. You notice the nib has a slightly stubby quality to it. I see some more skips there, huh? So a broader line on the downstroke than on the side stroke, which really is pronounced when you turn it upside down. Okay. Interesting pens actually. Let's see what I like about them and what I don't like about them. Okay, what do I like and what do I not like about the Cleo Skribent, the classic fountain pens? I don't have a whole lot to say about them because I think they are pretty nice, well-rounded pens. Starting with what I like. Simple, sleek design. I myself am not an enormous fan of thinner pens, but that's my personal opinion, so that's not a fair criticism. They are well made, light, sleek, and the steel one writes very, very nicely. The 14K nib, I love the springiness it has, the bounce, makes for a very soft, smooth writing experience. I love the slight stubbiness of that broad. I love that it's a piston filler, but the nib does skip a bit, especially on smooth paper. And that's of course an issue. I come back to that, I do like that the pens are available in a couple of colors, a couple of finishes. There's a piston filled option, which is an actual piston filler, not a captive converter. Nothing wrong with a captive converter, but then maybe you shouldn't call it a piston filler if it's actually just a converter built into the pen. I've never really understood that. But then again, I am an old bastard who likes to nag. I think it's pretty neat. I think it's pretty neat, pretty decent. There are some issues though. First thing, as I said, is if I buy a 14K nib, if I spend this amount, and let me just double check that is approximately $215 US, I want the pen to write. No excuses. It should write, and it shouldn't just write on copy of paper, it should write on smooth, expensive, nice paper. And it has a bit of issue there. Nothing Nibmeister couldn't fix, but if I pay that amount of money, it should write. Right? Right. Okay. Steel nib was better in that regard, wrote much more pleasantly and more smoothly. I mean smoothly as in it didn't skip, which is great. $105, not cheap for a cartridge converter. But then on the other hand, we always say that, not cheap, but then I see a whole lot of pens that are $100, that are up to $1,000 and that are still cartridge converters. So there are advantages to cartridge converters as well. I don't think you should automatically say, well, at that price it has to be a piston filler. It doesn't have to be a piston filler. In fact, nothing has to happen. It's just the way it is. Okay, we often do that. We say, well, it has, at that price it has to be this, it has to have a gold nib, it has. No, it doesn't. Nothing in the world really has to happen when you think about it. This was a bit of psychological education. Nice cartridge converter, cleans easily. There are advantages, right? But it is $105, which is not cheap, let's be fair. Cute pens, I think they would make for nice gifts, especially, for example, corporate gifts, because especially, say, this black and palladium, that's a bit of a business color scheme, a bit austere, nice, simple, and nice. I would love to try the 14K in a fine or medium, see how it works there, and I would probably also like to try another broad, just to see if that one skips as well, or if it's just, it happens to be this pen. Of course, I typically get one of each pen, so I never really know if it's a problem of that particular pen, or if it's a problem in general. But it would be interesting to try that. If you have one with a gold nib, please let me know. Please comment below and tell me if yours skip, etc. Okay, the bottom line, interesting pens. Not the cheapest out there for what you get, but nice, sleek, professional looking. You can use this at work, you can use it at school, you can use it at home. I think they work in every context. Nice that you have the option of a piston filler, nice that you have the 14 karat nib option, but they're not cheap, especially once you start to talk about the gold nib. The price more than doubles, which is quite a lot, I think. Having said that, pretty nice pens, and whether they're whether they're worth the price is, of course, up to you. John, thanks for lending me these pens. I really appreciate it. Guys, I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye-bye. Bye!